Hi rai 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 rai. Hi rai rai dee rai rai hi rai rai. Hi rai 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 rai. Hi rai rai. Join me. The words are easy. Hi rai rai dee rai 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 rai. Hi rai 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 rai. Hi hi hi. Hi rai rai hi rai rai. Hi rai 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 hi rai rai. Hi rai rai hi rai rai. Hi rai 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 hi rai rai. Hi rai 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 hi rai rai. Hi rai 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 rai. Hi rai rai. Hi rai 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 rai. Hi rai 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 rai. Hi rai rai. Hi rai rai hi rai rai. Hi rai 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 hi rai rai. Hi rai rai hi rai rai. Hi rai 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 rai. Hi rai 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 rai. Hi rai 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 rai. Hi rai rai. Hi rai 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 rai. Hi rai 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 rai. Hi rai rai. Hi rai rai hi rai rai. Hi rai 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 hi rai rai. Hi rai rai hi rai rai. Hi rai 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 hi rai rai. Hi rai 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 rai. Hi rai 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 rai. Hi rai rai. Hi rai 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 rai. Hi rai 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 rai. Hi rai rai. Hi rai rai hi rai rai. Hi rai 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 hi rai rai. Hi rai rai hi rai rai. Hi rai 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 hi rai rai. Hi rai 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 hi rai rai. Hi rai 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 hi rai rai. Hi rai 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 hi rai rai. Hi rai 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 hi rai rai. Before we get into Kabbalat Shabbat, first of all, Kabbalat Shabbat means the receiving of Shabbat. So what do you got to do to be able to receive? Got to be open. And Shabbat gives us a chance to be open. We don't have to be that protective, defensive like during the week, you know. But on Shabbat we say, okay, I can broaden my experience. I get as we'll see later in the service, we get what is called a nishama yetera, meaning a surplus breath. Interesting, or surplus soul. The soul broadens. And that's where Shabbat gives you the opportunity to, if you will, be expansive and not necessarily contracted. And that's really what I think Judaism as a spiritual tradition has really, really offered many, many, many people for quite a long time. This week is Parshat Bo. It's the Parsha which describes the last of the plagues, the horrible plague of the death of the firstborn, and describes the first Passover. It's called Pascha de Mitzrayma, and it's a little different than the Passover that we do today. We'll talk about that perhaps a little bit later on. Meanwhile, there's a wonderful preface to Kabbalat Shabbat on page 2. It's a lovely hymn put together by Moshe Azikri, Ben Moshe Azikri. And if you look at the 4 paragraphs, each one starts with what? Anyone know what that is? The tetragrammaton, which is the word we don't use very often. The 4-letter name. The 4-letter name, Yud He Vav He. So each of the paragraphs is an expansion upon Yud He Vav He, and it's done with great thought. And it basically talks about the Shekhinah meaning the indwelling presence of God, often seen as the feminine aspect of ourselves. We We have both feminine and masculine aspects, all of us. And it's basically, how do we woo her back into ourselves? How do we do it with a sense of love? And all of us basically need to have a soulmate. And the Shekhinah is our ongoing soulmate. And on Shabbat, we basically make a proud announcement of it and try to create an invitation. So it's an easy tune. We'll do one paragraph in Hebrew, one in English. You can sing the same tune to both. And please join me. Yedid nefesh av harachaman mishoch avdecha el ritzonecha Yaharutz avdecho kemo hayal yishtachave elemul hadorecho yerav lo yedidutecha mino fetzuf vechol toam. How splendid is your light, which worlds do reflect. My soul is one from craving for your love's delight. Please, good God, do heal her and show to her your face, so my soul can see you and bathe in your grace. There she will find strength and healing in the sight. Her joy will be complete, then eternal her delight. Vatik yemuna Rachamecha v'chusana al ben ahuvecha ki ze kama נחשפתי לראות מהרה בתפארת עוזך אליך חמדה ליבי וחוסנה ואל תדלם. Oh, help my lover spread your canopy of peace. Enfold all human beings, give all pain surcease. Your presence on this earth plain do make known to us, and we shall respond with song and with dance. Rush, my love, be quick. The time for love is now. Let your gentle favor grace us as of old. Ha-da-dee-di-di-di, ha-da-di-di-di-di, ha-da-di-di-di-di-di-di, ha-da-di-di-di-di, ha-da-di-di-di-di, ha-da-di-di-di-di-di-di, ha-da-di-di-di-di, ha-da-di-di. Ha da 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 dee da 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 ya da dee la 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 ya da 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 ha da 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 ha da da dee da ha da 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 dee da ha da da ha da dee da da dee da 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 dee da da da. Ha-da-dee-li-li-li, ha-da-di-li-li-li, ha-da-di-di-di-di-di-di-di, ha-da-di-di-di-di, ha-da-di-di-di-di, ha-da-di-di-di-di. Be able to rise. We rise to say the blessing over Shabbat candles, Hadlakat Ner Shel Shabbat. Holy One of blessing, your presence fills creation. Your presence fills creation. Oh, your presence fills creation. Everybody together. Holy One of blessing, your presence fills creation. Your presence fills creation. Oh, your presence fills creation. We take in the light of the candles and connect it to the light within, and we say, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Eloheinu melech haolam, Eloheinu melech olam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Good Shabbos, good Shabbos. Turn to those around you. Say a good Shabbos. Make everybody feel like they're at home. Don't be afraid. Everybody here, I've checked, none of them have any ill intention. So please, good Shabbos to all of you. You may be seated again. Shabbat, Erev Shabbat, as you know, the Kabbalat Shabbat is made up of Psalms, and the Psalms represent each day of the week until we get to the seventh Psalm, which is, of course, Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbat, which officially brings in Shabbat. But the Psalms, each one of them, they're very worthy of study because they don't always refer to Shabbat. As a matter of fact, I don't think, except for Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbat, none of them do. And it's really something worth studying. But what we associate with them is the days of the week. So the first one is Sunday. And then it goes on to what day after? Sunday? What? Quick. Monday. Very good. Very good. Very good. That was good. I'm glad you knew that. Right. And then, I'm afraid to ask about Monday now. So that's one thing. And also, if you look at the chart on the pages, it also relates to a different aspect, if you will, or manifestation of the divine according to the Kabbalistic Eitz Chaim, the tree of life. So you'll see Sunday has to do with the idea of Chokhmah, of Tiferet. I have to wear my glasses now, I'm getting older, or the prince getting smaller, one or the other. I'm not sure what's working here. Yes, it starts with Chesed, loving kindness. And it goes through, etc., until it gets to Shabbat, which is Malchut at the bottom. So you can always refer to that as we spend a moment before each psalm thinking about what happened on the day that we're thinking about that I want to bring into Shabbat with me. And what don't I want to bring into Shabbat with me? If you have a ball and chain you're carrying, I promise you there'll be more tzaras next week. You'll have a lot to worry about next week. You don't have to drag the stuff from last week. You can get rid of it. That's what Shabbat tries to do, free you up. And since we're reading this week about Yetziat Mitzrayim, the leaving of Egypt, that's really the essential idea of Shabbat. That, we'll say it in the Kiddush, right? Zecher Yetziat Mitzrayim, to the remembrance of the going out of Egypt. And the second thing we'll be concentrating on is Zecher L'Maseh Bereshit, to the act of creation. So you have the creation of the free human being who lives in this remarkable environment, the house of God. This is the house of God. Not this building only, even Beacon Street. Certainly if you're looking at the Grand Canyon, people say, oh, yes, oh. But it doesn't have to be the Grand Canyon. It can be Coolidge Corner if you do it the right way, if you look the right way at it. So page 3, Sunday, just give it a moment and think about what little gem of experience you'd like to bring in to the Shabbat with you. Lechu niranena l'Adonai nahariya letzur yishenu nikad mafanav betoda bezmirot nariya lo ki elegadol Adonai umelegadol al kol Elohim asher biyado mechkerei haaretz v'toafot harim lo ay rai rai ri rai rai ay rai rai ri rai rai ay rai 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 ay ri rai rai ay rai rai ri rai rai ay rai rai ri rai rai ay rai rai ri rai 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 ay rai Hi, ri, 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 hi, ri, 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 hi, ri, 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 hi, ri, 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 Hari rai rai, hai rai rai. Let's take a moment for Yom Sheni, for Monday. For some, it seems so long ago. For others, it's like a blip. Think about Monday. It could be something small. Phone call from a friend you haven't heard from. A smile from someone on the bus that has never smiled at you before. Little things. They add up, as you know. So bring something from Monday, Yom Sheni, into Shabbos with you. And leave whatever obstacle Monday had behind. Psalm 96 is on page 5. Shiru l'Adonai shir chadash, shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz, shiru l'Adonai baruchu shemo, basru meyom leyom yeshuato, sapru vagoyim kivodo vechol ha'amim nifleotav alalai ki gadol Adonai. O mehulal meyot norahu al kol Elohim hai rai rai ki kol Elohe amim elilim va'adonai shamayim hasa hod vehadar lefanav oz b'tiferet במקדשו הבו לאדוני, משפחות עמים הבו לאדוני, כבוד שמו הלילה הבו לאדוני, כבוד שמו שיהיו מנחה ובואו לחצרותיו, הירא ישתחווה לאדוני בהדרת קודש, חילו מפניו כל הארץ, אמרו וגויים אדוני מלך, אף תיכון תבל בעל תימות, ידין עמים במישרים, ישמחו השמיים ותגל הארץ, ירם הים ומלואו, יעלו שדי וכל אשר בו, אז ירננו כל הציוע לפני אדוני, כי היווה לשפוט הארץ, ישפוט תבל בצדק, ויעמים באמונתו, ילי לי לי לי, היי דרי רי רי, היי רי רי, היי רי 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 רי, היי רי רי רי, היי רי 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 רי, היי רי רי רי. Yom Shlishi, Tuesday. What little gem can we pluck from that day to bring it to Shabbos with you? Page 6, Psalm 97. Light, if you look at the end of the page, light is sown for the tzaddik, the just one, and simcha, gladness for those who are ethical. Tzaddikim, the just ones, rejoice in Yah, and give thanks to God's holy name for the consciousness of Yah's uniqueness. Orez arua lahatzadik, ole yishrelev simcha. Orez arua lahatzadik, ole yishrelev simcha. Simchu tzadikim b'haya, vehodu lezeche kodsho. Simchu tzadikot b'haya, והודו לזכר קודשו. Hi, rai, 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 ambari, rai, rai. Hi, rai, 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 rai. Hi, rai, 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 la, li, la, la. Hi, rai, rai, la, la, li, la, la. Or zaru ala tzadik, or yishrelev simcha. Or zaru ala tzadik, Ole Yisrael simcha, simchu tzadikim baya, vehodu lezecher kodsho. Simchu tzadikot baya, vehodu lezecher kodsho. Wednesday, Yom Revi'i. It's always instructive to do this cheshbon hashavua, the accounting of the week, not for what happened last week, but for next week. So you'll see it happens that you'll say, oh, what's special about this moment today? Maybe jot it down even if you need to. And all of a sudden you realize that you can look at things and really the smallest things and see how they enhance you in a way. So that's really what practicing what was in order to be able to practice what will be. So Psalm 98. Zamru, the middle of the page. Zamru l'Adonai bechinor, bechinor v'kol zimra, bechatzot rot v'kol shofar, hariyu lifnei hamelech yah, yiram hayam umlo, Tevel veyoshveva niharot yimchahu chaf yachad harim yeranenu. Let the sea roar, and that it contains the world, and that they dwell in it. Let the rivers clap their hands, and all the mountains sing for joy. Before Yah, for Yah comes to judge the earth, and God will judge the world with righteousness and the peoples with equity. לפני אדוני כי בא לשפוט הארץ, ישפוט תבל בצדק, וימים במישרים. יום חמישי, Thursday. Raise Yah. Yah is the four-letter name, the way we can somehow pronounce it. Hallelujah, you may have heard a couple of times. Raise, lift up, lift up. And that's really what a lot of our spiritual work is about. It's about lifting things up. The everyday we can lift up and make special, like we make tonight, tomorrow special. We lift it up out of the week and make it special. Lifting up also means, of course, that we can lift up a burden or lift off a burden that we may be carrying. And we will do that in order to do what? In order to come to a holy mountain. A Har Kodsho, interesting term, the holy mountain. In many, many spiritual traditions, the idea of the mountain, the idea that it's someplace we wish to ascend to. And as you know, we talk about ascending to Mount Sinai, et cetera, but it's always this idea that somehow there is a way to make it if you climb carefully to the peak. And when you get to the peak, what is always remarkable is you can't stand there. You can't have a peak experience and remain on the peak. You have to come back down again. And that's the oscillation of life, This is it, Whether we like to admit it or not, we're living on a roller coaster. Ups and downs, ups and downs. And you can benefit in some way from even the down. Because guess what? It may give you the momentum to get back up again. And that's the way we flow. Why? Because ki kadosh ya Eloheinu. And the word kadosh, it's a problematic word. We translate it as holy. I'm not sure what holy means, to be honest. But I know what the word really means is special. Special. To make something special. Mr. Rogers was right. All of you are special. For some people, that's a reference that goes back, a million years now. But the idea is that all of us have this capacity to make something special. In modern Hebrew, you would say, "Ani magdish et atzmi lemashu." I dedicate myself to something. And I think that's really a wonderful way of understanding it, rather than saying, "Oh, it's holy." It's okay, but that doesn't last enough. But to invest in something, that can really be holy work, to invest in something. So, middle of page 9, Psalm 99. Romemu ya Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu ya Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehar kodsho. Ki gadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki gadosh ya Eloheinu romemu. Ay dai dai alai lai ay dai di dai dai ambari di dai dai ay dai dai di dai dai ay dai dai ay dai dai ay dai 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 ay dai 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 ay dai dai di dai dai hi 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 dai dai ay dai dai ay dai di dai 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 hi hi ay dai dai ay dai 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 di dai 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 romemu ya Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu ya Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehar kodsho. Psalm 29, Friday, Yom Shishi, Erev Shabbat Kodesh. Today. Hopefully it's easier to remember. What can you pluck out of today to create that bouquet that we've been creating of gems, of flowers that we want to bring into Shabbat with us? So give it a moment. Adonai lehemabu yashav, yeshev Adonai melech liolam. Adonai oz li'amo yiten, Adonai yivarech et amo b'shalom. Lecha dodi. I love it. It's an oldie but a goodie. But what I love about it is on page 12. It'll go through page 14. First of all, it's a beautiful poem. It's written by someone whose name is embedded in the poem. If you look at the beginning of the paragraphs, Shin, Lamed, Mem, and then Hey, Shlomo. And his name was Shlomo Alkabetz. That's the way he used to sign, rather than, by. It didn't say by Shlomo Alkabetz. He embedded it in the poem. And the poem, of course, is a poem which has two sides to it. One is about the destruction, and one is about the rebuilding. And I think that's really important. But more, what I always bring to mind is that if you look at the Hebrew of the words Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala, which all of you know possibly, right? Come, my friend, to greet the bride. There's the next word, Penei Shabbat Nekabla. And here it's translated correctly. There are many faces to Shabbat. There are no identical Shabbats that Jews celebrate or commemorate or observe, if they observe. Even in the most, quote-unquote, observant environments, they'll see that everyone makes a different kind of Shabbos. So you have the opportunity, each and every one of us has the opportunity, if you have not made Shabbat yet. By the way, you have to make Shabbat. I like that term. It isn't Shabbat unless you make it Shabbat. For most people, it's Friday night, Saturday, whatever. But if you make it Shabbat, then basically by making it, you're basically finding a way for you as an individual to express what Shabbat is. For some, it's going to be observance, not going to work, no shopping, right? Coming to synagogue, etc., being with friends and family. If it's a long Shabbat, taking a nap. Short Shabbats are kind of hard for that. And then some of you will do it by, well, I may not answer my phone for 25 hours. And of course, they'll send the police after you to find out if you're dead, right? But I won't be ruled by that Mitzrayim. The buzz on the phone. You notice how all of us just go straight to it? It's like Pavlov, it's really amazing. And, or I might say today, I'm gonna sit for an hour and read that book that I've been promising myself I would read. That's Shabbos too. So remember, you don't have to copy anybody. You can't copy anybody. You have to start on your own steps. And I always recommend people who are not Shabbat observant that they at least become Shabbos conscious. Zocher Shabbat. Remember the Shabbat is one way of saying it. And Shomer, Shmor the Shabbat. And guard it or create rituals that help you guard it so it gets passed on to the generations. But even just remembering it's Shabbos, you get up tomorrow morning and say, oh, it's Shabbos. You may not observe it in any traditional way, but that consciousness is already a little bit of seed that it gets embedded in you. And you say, oh, yeah, it's Shabbos. Yeah, well, maybe I'll make today a little different than the rest of the week. But as I say, don't jump whole hog into it, pardon the expression, because it's not easy to go from a little to a lot. You got to take it and digest it, small bites. And then you basically can move on. And there's always dessert at the end, so don't worry. There's always dessert. Dodi lekrat kala pnei Shabbat nikabela lecha dodi lekrat kala pnei Shabbat nikabela Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad Hishmiyanu el hameyuchad Aya echad Ushemo echad L'shemo l'tiferet ve'letila Lecha dodi lekrat kala Pnei Shabbat nikabela Lekrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha Ki mekor habracha Merosh mikedem nesucha Sof maaseh b'machshavat chila. Everybody, lecha dodi lekrat hala pnei Shabbat nikabela Begdash melechir ir melucha Kumitzi mitoch ha'afecha Rav lach shevet be'emek habacha Vehu yachamol alay chemla Lecha dodi lekrat kala Pnei Shabbat nikabelo Oh, shake off the dust, my people arise. Robe yourself with light and joy, with light and joy. The future within is revealed now. The freedom to be enters my soul. Lecha dodi lekrat kala Pnei Shabbat nikabela O Hitori, awake, Hitori, Kiva Orech, Komi Uri. O rise now, rise, and sing a new song. The splendor of God is open through you. Lecha dodi, lekrat kalam. Penei Shabbat nekabela lecha dodi likerat kala hararai Penei Shabbat nekabela harai lecha dodi likerat kala hararai Penei Shabbat nekabela. Lo tevoshi velo tikalemi ma tishtochachi umatemi bach yechesu ani yeami venivneta העיר אל תילה לך דודי לקראת קלה ירדאי 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 פני שבת Hi, rai, rai, lecha dodi likerat kalo, yadadai, 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 Penei Shabbat, nikabelo. Those who destroyed you and now are destroyed, all who devoured are far, far away. Yasis alayich, Elohayich, keeps os chatan al kala lecha dodi likrat kalo yadadai 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 Penei Shabbat nekabelo harai lecha dodi likrat kalo yadadai 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 Penei Shabbat nekabelo yamin usmol tifrotzi ve'et Adonai taritzi Al yadi sheben parzi venismecha avinagila lecha dodi likrat kala peradai yaradai. Come, let's greet Shabbat. Haridai, 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 lecha dodi likrat kala. Haridai, 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 Penei Shabbat dekabelo. Haridai, haridai, ram haridai. Hi, di, 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 di. Hi, di, di, hi, di, di, di. Lecha dodi likrat kalo yadadai 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 Penei Shabbat nekabelo Hi-di-dai, am-da-di-dai, 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 hi da dee da, hi da da da, hi da da dee da, da da dee da da, hi da da dee da, da dee da 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 da, hi da da dee da, da 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 da, hi da da dee da, hi da da dee da da. Ah, a breath. The only way you can pronounce God's name is by breath. Yeah. Hallelujah. Yeah, let's hear it. Hallelujah. Guys had never been to a black church. I see you never realize that you're part of it, folks. It's not spectator. Okay. So why? Because it's not a word. It's something that's totally incomprehensible, ineffable. Whatever that word means, ineffable, whatever it is. But you can only have a sense of it, perhaps, in the experiences of your life. This morning in meditation class here, we have a wonderful meditation group that meets Friday mornings. We talked about the fact that one of the translations, possibly, of the word of the Yud He Vav He, which if you look at, has in it all the tenses. Haya, if you know Hebrew. Hoveh, now. Yiyeh, what will be, right? As a matter of fact, when Moshe asked God a couple of weeks ago, what's your name? Because you go to Egypt, it says, who sent me? They're going to ask me who sent me. And he says, Eheyeh, Asher Eheyeh. What does that mean? I will be what I will be, meaning I'm not static. Very important, right? Not static. I'm a verb, not a noun, right? The minute you make something a noun, you capture it. You know, that's what we do with nouns. We capture things with it. So, in a sense, if you're breathing, you're saying God's name all the time. So how does one really worship, if you want to use that term, tricky term? Stay alive. But not just alive by breath. Be alive. Be alive. Breathe into the world. From where? From your core, from your neshama. Neshama means what? Soul, but it also means breath. Nishima, same word. So that's the secret, if you want. The secret sauce, we call that. The secret sauce is basically staying in being in the present, acknowledging the fact that you have this great gift. And we always take it for granted until, God forbid, we have problems breathing. And then all of a sudden, oh, God, I should have been better. Oh, you know. So don't wait for that. Don't take it for granted. So, the seventh psalm, Malchut, Shechina. Mizmor Shir, page 15. Mizmor Shir, Leyom HaShabbat. Mizmor Shir, Leyom HaShabbat. Tov, Lehodod Laya, Ulezamer Leshibcha Elyon, Lehagid, Baboker Chastecha, V'yemunatecha Baleilot, Ale Asor, Ve'ale Navel, Ale Higayon Bechinor, Ki Simachtani, Ya Befalecha, B'mase Yadecha, Aranein, Magadlu, Masecha Ya, Me'od Ameku Machshevotecha, Ishbar, Lo Yehda, Uchesil Lo Yavin Et Zot, Ay, rai, rai, hay, rai, 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 hay, rai, 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 ay, rai, rai, hay, rai, 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 hay, rai, 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 rai. It is a good thing to give thanks to Yah, and to sing praises to your most exalted high name, Elyon, the Most High, to declare your loving kindness in the mornings and your faithfulness in the nights, with an instrument of 10 strings, with a navel, the dulcimer, with a solemn sound upon the kinnor, the harp. For you, Yah, has made me glad through all of your works. I will be joyous and exult in the works of your hands. How great, ma gadlu, are your works, Yah. Your thoughts arise from the very depths of creation. A brutish person will not perceive this, nor will a fool comprehend this. And the righteous, if you look at the end of the paragraph, the end of the psalm, the righteous shall flourish like a palm tree. They shall grow like a cedar in Lebanon. Planted in the house of Yah, they shall flourish in the courts of our God. They will still bring forth fruit in old age. They will be juicy and rich with sap, to declare that Yah is upright, my rock, in whom there is no falsehood or wickedness. The last 4 lines in Hebrew. Tzaddik ata amar yifrach ke'erez balevanon yizke shetolim beveit Yah bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu ojenuvun b'seva deshenim verananim yiyo lehagid kayeshar Yah Tzuri velo avlatabo. Psalm 92 is always accompanied, because it's the Psalm of Shabbat, Malchut, the queen. And it has a sister psalm. You know, the one who walks behind the queen? Make sure she doesn't trip on her train or whatever. That's the sister psalm, Psalm 93, on the following page, the middle of the page. Amikaelos mayim rabim adirim mishbereyam adirim mishbereyam adibamarom Adonai adibamarom Adonai edotecha ne'emenu meod לביתך נאו הקודש אדוני ליאורך ימים אדוני ליאורך ימים היי רי 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 היי רי 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 היי רי 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 Hari rai 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 rai, hai rai 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 rai, hari rai 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 rai, hai rai rai. Those among us who are mourners, who are commemorating a yahrzeit, will have a custom of saying Kaddish, with others, page 17, the mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, V'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayeichon uvyomeichon uv'chayei dechol bet Yisrael ba'agala uv'zman kariv v'yibru Yehei shmei Rabba mevorach li'olam u'me'olmaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpo'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudsha brichu le'elah min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata Damiran bi'alma v'yimru Yehi shlomo rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru Oseh shalom b'bromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'yimru. Amen. You may be seated. So before we go into our Mariv service, just a few words about today. And first of all, it's International Holocaust Remembrance Day. What does that mean? What does it mean? I often look at the words and I'm saying, what is it saying? Well, in 1995, maybe, or 2005, I think it was 1995, a resolution was made at the United Nations, which isn't always friendly to our causes, but they made a resolution that maybe it would be appropriate that there should be a day of the year where the world remembers the Shoah, the whole Holocaust. For Jews, we've had a day, 27th of Nisan, Yom HaShoah, which was basically for the Jewish world. But this is for the world. So you have international Holocaust. Terrible word, Holocaust. That's why Shoah took over, because whole Holocaust, in the translation of the Bible, is an offering, a burnt offering, which imputes some sort of meaning to all this, which I don't like very much. It's sort of a Christian conception a little bit, right? And then you have remembrance. Okay, that's a good word, remembrance. Zachor, you should remember, right? We're big on that. We're not big necessarily on history being accurate, but we're really big on memory. Memory. That's really one of our strong points. And day, well, it should be more than a day, but certainly it's better to have one day than to have any of all. So I'm a child of survivors. My parents came over after the war. My mother was in a Nazi labor camp. My father was saved, in a sense, by a death by being drafted by Stalin when Russia came in to meet Germany after the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. And they lost tons. I've lost dozens and dozens, of uncles, aunts, cousins, extended family, et cetera, et cetera. So I was raised with a sort of a whole Holocaust consciousness because I had to live with it every day, and it wasn't pleasant. It was not pleasant. And a lot of kids who are children of survivors have issues because ultimately, how can you in any way do anything that is not on the right path after what your parents suffered? How can you do that, right? You can't do that. So everybody does it anyway because there's a clash that happens often in this world. So what is it I want to remember, I asked myself. And what is my responsibility now that all the survivors are gone? I've never been a person who spent his entire life talking. I taught the Holocaust academically, of course, because I was a child of survivors and I wanted to somehow subdue, if you will, the emotional impact by getting involved in it academically. But what I eventually settled on when I finished my doctorate was I picked a person for my doctorate who lived in that vibrancy of Poland, named Zeitlin, Hillel Zeitlin. At that point, very forgotten, and then basically since I finished my doctorate many years ago, it's come back in a little bit, it's become a bit more well-known. What was his role? He was part of a remarkable, and this is what I want to remember, this is what I want to give over to you, okay? I can give you over the processes of destruction, yes. I can give over to you the facts that fascism begins very small, but then the lie gets bigger and bigger and people buy it. I can give you all of the history from the beginning, from the end of the temple in the year 70 until 1939, and show you a direct line between the Romans and the Christians all the way through to the Shoah. But I don't want to talk about that. I want you to try to remember something that you never knew. That's another thing. How do you remember something you didn't experience? It's a strange word to use, right? Most of you were born, 25 minutes ago. Looks like a young crowd here, right? So what is it that we want to remember? So let me tell you what you should try to learn about so you can remember it. There was a vibrancy in Jewish life, which is hard to describe compared to what we have here. Yes, there's a vibrancy in American Jewish life now. I'm glad to see it. But I want you to know it was even more of a vibrancy in Poland between the wars, between 1918 and 1939, done with far less money that's being spent today. These are people who lived, many of them, and they were in a very variegated community. You have to get out of your mind this idea that everybody was in Fiddler on the Roof. Everybody was shuckling and praying all day. You got to get away from that. That's a mythology. It had every possible expression of politics, of ideology, of religion, and they all existed, not always comfortably, but one thing was true. They all had something in common. Many of them had, and that was Yiddish. I'm not going to spend the lecture telling you what Yiddish is, but you should know that it was spoken by 12 million people in 1939. Okay? And now, of course, very few. So they were able to have these ideological confrontations in something that united them culturally. So you could have I assume everybody came to the Seder. It was big, even if you were a communist or a socialist, because we have the 4 children. You got to have at least one Rasha. You got to hire a communist to come to your house, right? We needed one Rasha, right? So you could have a communist, and there were Jews who were communists. Matter of fact, they sort of, I don't want to get into history, they really messed up after the war, whatever the Jewish communists. You had Jewish socialists called Bundists. You had 53 varieties of Zionists, from the left to the right and down the middle. You had Hasidim. You had Orthodox Jews who were not Hasidim. You had people who were obviously interested in creating a Jewish nation in Poland, an autonomous nation in Poland, who had no desire to leave elsewhere. You had all kinds of youth movements. You had people who wrote for magazines, and there were even, by the end of the 20s, you began to see Yiddish film, Yiddish magazines. You see and we have to just get into this idea that what I want you to know and to remember is that these people lived life fully. They weren't waiting, shivering in a cave, waiting for people to annihilate them. They're not the lemmings of history. And often we sort of see them, certainly they were victims of a crime that they couldn't control, being born a Jew. That was the only crime they committed. By the way, Jews have nothing to do with anti-Semitism. It's not a Jewish issue. It's the anti-Semites issue. That's really important to understand. Because you can go and say, oh, if I only had been nicer to my neighbor in Berlin, he would have stood up when the police car came and arrested me. I should have been better on giving Christmas gifts. No, didn't work. So I want you just to try to absorb, if you can, in your imagination, what it is to live in a society that was committed to living life as fully as possible. You look at the newspaper, the great Yiddish newspaper, the most well-distributed, called Der Moment. Now there's a magazine actually called Moment Magazine based on that. And you see what was on the agenda September 1st. A wedding announcement, a bar mitzvah, a hike to the mountains. Real people doing real things, wearing modern clothes. They look like us. They look like us. They are us in a way. So that's what I want you to remember. You're talking about living human beings. And it's important to recover that a bit more because we get so interested in the mechanics of destruction. And yes, it's important to study, it's important to know, but not as important as knowing the life of people who lived and the variety of lives that people lived. Second thing to remember, which you may not know, or you may know. The people who perpetrated these atrocities look like you and me too. They were not from outer space with gnarly teeth and saliva, monsters. No, the fellow who stamped your ticket to Auschwitz went home and played with his kids after work at 5. That's what makes this so horrible. If there were monsters from outer space who came and did it, we'd be less horrible in a way. But what's horrible is that regular people cooperated. And none of this was possible. None of it would be possible without the cooperation of hundreds of thousands of people, maybe more. So that's the horror of this. And the horror of this is that human beings seem to be capable of doing these things. And we have to examine even ourselves and saying, do I have possibilities of cruelty within me? And yes, many of us do. We hold it back, thank God. But it's there. Feelings of vengeance, feeling of even animosity, hate. We're all capable of that. It's there. And what was, unfortunately, one of the things that disappoints us today, and I know some of you, Jonathan's an academic, he understands this, is that basically it didn't impact on Western cultural ideals. Remember, 19th century, progress, Hegel. It's going to be the best that it ever was. And we're going to play Beethoven and Bach, and we're going to dance to the waltzes, and we're going to do everything. And we found out these people who were educated in Western culture were able to play Bach and burn babies. You mean Western culture won't save you and make you an empathic human being? I guess not. And it took us a very long time in the United States to get away from still seeing the Enlightenment curriculum, as it's called, to be altered. It took until the 60s. Some of you may have heard of this in the 60s. The 60s began this idea of historical revisionism. All of a sudden, we realized that we've been given a bill of goods. We've been told about heroes, liberators, and they were horrible murderers. And people from various cultures, Jews, Hispanics, African Americans, et cetera, all began to say, wait a second, let's see what's underneath Western culture. And it's been a struggle since the 70s until today. These issues are still on the table. Imagine, right? Florida. Somebody still feels fearful that if people know what happened to black people in this country, it's going to destroy the country. This is the fear of not being able to embrace different perspectives. And still harping back to some if you will, modern or even early modern kind of way of understanding what is considered to be culture or be cultured. So those are the two things I want you to remember. One, we're dealing with living people before they were destroyed. Nobody volunteered to be destroyed. And nobody waited it. And by the way, one of the things is a little historical note, being a historian, I have to throw something in, is that it was so difficult, and imagine, difficult to grasp in any real way. If I would tell you in 1938, there's going to be a time when people will put you on a wagon in a train and burn you to death. You say, you got to be nuts. And especially the Germans. The Germans liberated us after the First World War. They came into Poland and got rid of the Tsar. It was really wonderful for us. The Germans, the most cultured people in Europe, are going to burn babies in ovens? The worst possible scenario could not be grasped. I don't grasp it now, and it happened. Still unfathomable to me. So always remember, these were real people. They had aspirations and they had hopes, like all of us. And the people who perpetrated this were real people. Real people. And this leads us to the quandary of our time. Will there be a possibility? And this is what Jews believe. There will be a possibility. We believe in Mashiach Zeit. We believe there'll be a time. Maybe we're foolish, but this is our Mishigas. We believe there will be a time when people will not kill each other. No. Halavai. And it should be soon. I'm ready. I'm ready. I don't think everybody in the world is ready right now to stop killing each other. I think they have a lot of issues, as they say. So, my friends, on International Holocaust Remembrance Day, I'm so glad that it isn't only the Jewish community now that is involved in this, but the world is involved in this. Will it last till tomorrow? It only said day. It didn't say week. Maybe they should have said Holocaust week. What do you think? All right, whatever. Give them a date. It's better than nothing. But you guys in this room who are going to look forward, God willing, to full lives, you have an obligation. I will be dead, and I'm only one generation away from it. You're 3 generations away from it already. I'm not saying you have to be morbid, you have to talk about the destruction, but I think you do have an obligation to talk about the life and what continuity really means. Continuity means that you have a connection to the past. It doesn't bridle you. It does not bridle you, the past. But it gives you an opportunity to go forward based on something that you can believe in. So, Shabbat Shalom. Wish I could give you a happier message, but love each other, okay? That's the message. Love each other. Not always easy. Do your best. Do your best. On Valentine's Day, send a card to yourself too. It helps to love yourself first, and then you can love others. So on page 18, our introduction to our Mariv worship service. A vision of Shabbat, an insight, the profound meaning of being at one. Through the service of Kabbalat Shabbat, the throne of glory is prepared for the Holy One. With the arrival of Shabbat, the Shekhinah is liberated from all forces of evil and harsh judgments, leaving it free for intimate union with the holy light, adorned with many crowns by the Holy One. All kingdoms of anger, all dominions of judgment, flee from her presence. No alien power reigns in all the universe. No alien power reigns in all the world. She is bathed in light from on high, receiving a crown of Shabbat prayers from earth. From us, the holy people, all of us are adorned with fresh additional souls, which are ours on Shabbat. Then we begin Shabbat prayers, happily blessing her, joy and gladness on our faces, released from severity and judgment. Uttering Baruch Hu, please rise if you're able to. Uttering Baruch Hu, praise Yah, as Shabbat blessings and peace begin to flow. I invite you on page 19. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Liolam Vaed. You may be seated. The two blessings preceding the Shema. One is the blessing of light on page 19, and the blessing of love on page 20. Let's read together. Page 19. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam. Mariv Aravim B'chokhmah Poteach She'arim. ובתבונה משנה עיתים ומחליף את הזמנים, ומסדר את הכוכבים במשמרותיהם, ורקיע כרצונו. בורא יום ולילה, גולן אור מפני חושך, וחושך מפני אור. ומעביר יום, ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה. אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה היה, Hamari Varavim, and we say like we mean it. No blessing is complete without an amen. You can give a blessing out, but if people don't take it, it flies off somewhere. Love, the gift of love, the gift of Torah, page 20. Ahavat olam bet Yisrael. עמך אהבת תורה ומצוות חוקים ומשפטים אותנו לימדת על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורותיך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו אורך ימינו ובהם נגה יומם ולילה, יומם ולילה. ואהבתך תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה יה, אוהב עמו ישראל. אוהב עמו ישראל. That's the story. Friends, the Shema, of course, is most well known. It's not a prayer. Everybody makes it a prayer. It's nothing. It's a statement. Or as some we say, it's a geshrai into the world. It's a screaming into the world. Right? To remember. To listen. Listen. Listen, Yisrael, those who struggle and fight with God, wrestling with God. That's what Israel means. Right? When Jacob fights, remember that? With himself, I think. And he comes out realizing he has another purpose, and that is to be Yisrael. The four-letter name, the name that we can not only get through experience, but not through any intellectual way. Eloheinu, who guides us, That essence is oneness, one, interconnectedness. This is our craziness. Beneath the conflict we see every day in front of our eyes, we acknowledge that there is something beneath that, and that is oneness. So take a full breath for each word. If you want to use the word Havaya instead of Adonai, if you look at the bottom of the page, you can use that word as well. A full breath for each word. Shema Yisrael Havaya Eloheinu Adonai Echad Shem Kevod Malchuto Lo Muvet V'ahavta ha'et Adonai Elohecha V'chol lebavcha V'chol nafshecha V'chol miodecha V'hayu Hadabarim Oeileh Asher Anochi Mitzavecha Hayom Al Levavecha V'shinantam Levanecha V'dibarta bam V'shivtecha B'veitecha U'valechtecha B'derech Shoch Becha Uvkumecha Ukshaltam Liot Al Yadecha V'ayu Letotafot B'einecha U'tavtam Al Mizuzot Veitecha Ovihisharecha. Page 24, in the middle of the page, is a wonderful interpretation of the second paragraph of the Shema. Let's read it together. Page 24, the middle paragraph, V'haya im shamoa. If I carefully follow the way I have been shown, the way of justice, mercy, and humility, serving life with the fullness of my life, then the earth will flourish with righteousness and riches. Pure rain will fall in its season. The earth will bring forth her bounty. My labors will flourish, and the fragrance of life will scent the air like fine oil. There'll be food enough for all, and all will be able to partake of it. No one will exploit another, for no other shall be separate from the one. But beware, if I follow another path, pursuing gods of narrow desire who separate one from another in quest of power and control. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Let's do it again, right? If I follow another path, pursuing gods of narrow desire who separate one from another in quest of power and control, then the heavens will rain poison. Creation will fall ill, and I and all will soon disappear from this good earth. Therefore, I impress these words upon my heart to quell anger. I bind them in my hands to stop violence. I set them before my eyes to see the one who is all. By word and by deed I teach them. I repeat them at home and away, morning and night. I write them upon the doorposts of my home and upon my gate, that my dwelling be a haven from ignorance and delusion. Then my days and the days of my people will endure forever. One generation passing righteousness and kindness to the next, all the days of the earth. Adonai Elohechem Emet. The third blessing, following the Shema, middle of page 25, the blessing of redemption. Malchuto b'ratzo kibur leihem, Moshe Miriam b'nei Zchol Shira, b'simcha rabba v'yamru chulam, mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, nohora tehilot, O Sefer Malchutecha Rubenecha Bokei Yam Lefnei Moshe Ze'eli Amnu V'Yamru Adonai Yimloch Li'olam Va'ed V'Nemar Ki Fada Adonai Yaakov V'Golo Miyad Chazak Mimenu Baruch Ata Adonai Go Al Yisrael, and let us hear a rousing Hashkivenu, cause us eternal our God, page 26. Cause us, eternal God, let's read together, to lie down for well-being, and help us arise, our ruler, to life. Spread over us the shelter of your well-being and fix in us good counsel in your presence. Save us for the sake of your name and shield us. Keep far from us enmity, illness, strife, hunger, and fear. Keep oppressors from confronting or pursuing us. Let us be covered by the shadow of your wings, for you are the protector and helper. Mercy and compassion is your rule. Guard our going out and our coming in for life and for well-being, from this time forth and forever. And spread over us the shelter of your well-being. Oh, praised are you, Adonai, who spreads over us the shelter of your well-being over the people Israel, over Yerushalayim, and over the world. Ufros aleinu sukkah shelemecha baruch atah. Hapore sukkah shalom aleinu v'kol amo Yisrael. Al Yerushalayim v'kol ha'olam. And let us say, we rise for the declaration of Shabbat on page 27. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. כששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת vayinafash. Following the Chatzi Kaddish, which demarcates a change in the service, the Amidah is silently read, or you can use words of your heart from page 29 to page 39. There are commentaries, there are translations, transliterations. Do whatever you need to do. If you have a need this coming week, or you felt it all week, and you need to have a little more backbone. Anybody has that need sometime? Got to be a little more backbone. This is a wonderful faith quilt right in front of you called Gevura, boundary, strength. For those who need a little bit more open-heartedness, right? You've been a little too harsh maybe this week. You want a little, this is chesed, loving kindness. And you need both, right? They have to balance. And most of us, I think, need the middle. But if you need to, get closer, stand next to it during the silent Amidah. It's perfectly okay. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה וילמד דברי חילותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ועגלה ובזמן קהרי ויאמרו יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם יומי יומיה יתברך יתברך וישתבח יתפואר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה לעילה מקום בחטא ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן ביעלמה, ויאמרו אמן. שפתיי תפתח ופי כתבך, ברוך אתה ודינו אלינו וחוסך. אל הגדול גבוה, אתה גיבור אתה קדוש ובוא קדוש קדוש אתה קדוש יום השביעי שמונה תכלית מעשה בראשית אין יכול שבת ועצות יום השביעי ואחר כי משה שבת בכל דבר שבת לעשות סע בין מדבך וסמלים שבסך קדש השבת. How did it say it? May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable unto you. Yiyu liratzon imrei fi vehegon libi lifanecha Adonai tzuri v'goali ose shalom bimromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel ay rai ay rai Hi da di da 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 di da da. Hi da da. Hi da da. Hi da da. Shabbos you will be concluding our services very soon. If there's anyone who has would like to bring into our consciousness someone who is ill or are ill themselves who are supportive of somebody ill, if you'd like to give me the name of the person, just rise and give us the name. Anyone at home? Okay, just give me the name of the person. You can say it to yourself if you don't want to be out loud about it. It's okay. He has an English name. That's good. Good. Any others? The Mishaberach. Mishaberach avotenu bekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu, mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. If you're able to rise, we rise for the Aleinu, which is found on page 44. Aleinu lishabeach ladon hakol, latet gdula liyotzeh breshit, shelo asanu im goyei aratzot, velo samanu im mishpechot adama, shelo samch lekenu imohem, וגורו עלינו עם כל העולם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. For the sovereignty is yours, and you will reign eternally in honor. As is written in your Torah, the eternal will reign forever and ever. And it is said the eternal will be ruler over all the earth on that day. The eternal will be one, and God's name will be one. V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yiyeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. You may be seated. Those who are in mourning or have a yahrzeit will be saying the Mourner's Kaddish, which will be found on page 48. This coming week, we commemorate the Passing of Mercedes Bakalchuk, Ida Brim Balzer, Zulik Breakstone, Sylvia Isberg, Michael Yutko Lapkin, Edward Lipton, Rhoda Nickerson, Eva Nitkin, Eve Peck, Art Rybeck, Molly Schulman, Mark Silver, Arnold Starr, Leon Stein, Gertrude Brenda Stone, Rubin, Blanche Goodis, Glazer, Muriel Brown, Nathan Gutman, Sophia Joyson, Etta Lipner, Charles Merlin, Eva Nitkin, Hattie Olam, Arnold Starr, Leon Stein, Theodore Stern, Gertrude Benda Store. We said that name, and the last name, I believe, is your name mentioned? Your father, are you here for your side? For 11 months, okay. Finally, is this it? You got a while, okay. So my friends, those in mourning have a yahrzeit, please, the Mourner's Cottage, page 48. Yitkadal v'yitkada shemei rabah v'yalma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol bet Yisrael ba'agala v'zman kari v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei rabah mevorach li'olam u'mei maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpo'ar v'yitrumam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalal shemei dekucha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran bi'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlomo rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'yimru amen. You may be seated. Before we do Kiddush and Motzi, if Jonathan would be so kind as bringing those little tables closer to us. Just a few announcements. No service is complete without announcements. It's very important. Matter of fact, some shuls just start with announcements and wish everybody goodbye. That's so they know they've been into services. Tomorrow is a special Shabbat. They're all special, but tomorrow it's our Shabbat Hadorot, which is basically all the generations come together, older, younger. It starts from 10 to 10:30. There'll be Shabbat Shel, and then from 10:30 we'll have a morning service, and there'll be a Torah play. So I hope that everyone will be here tomorrow at 10. It's always wonderful to see the kids just getting into it, and they can teach us so much, right? Especially about enthusiasm, I must say. The kids are great. Well, next thing, perspectives and lived experiences of Jews of color. There'll be a Zoom on February 1st, 8 to 9. The Jews of Color Initiative and Dayenu invite you to a special panel discussion featuring our own Rav Tiferet of the Jews of Color Initiative's groundbreaking report, Beyond the Count. So that's February 1st. You can find all this information online at tbzbrookline.org. If you're not a member, you're not getting our weekly announcements. That can be solved. Become a member. The TBZ is also working with the GBIO, the Greater Boston Interfaith Organization, on a statewide housing justice campaign. And on February 15th, we'll be holding a teach-in with the United Parish of Brookline together. And next Shabbat, join us for the annual Refugee Shabbat, a moment to dedicate a Shabbat experience to refugees and asylum seekers organized by HIAS. HIAS is the Hebrew Immigration Aid Society. My parents were resettled by HIAS. And they did a tremendous job for 100 years, more than 100 years now. They started right after Kishinev, 1904, I think. 1904 they started. And I love what they say. For years and years and years, we helped Jews, and now we help others because we're Jews. And they do an amazing job. So it's worthy of your support. And come for that Shabbat. We'll be honored and looking forward to several of our people who have basically we've helped, and the clients will also be here. And we'll also celebrate International Ice Cream for Breakfast Shabbat. So some of you, that will be the real attraction. And then we have a community Tu B'Shvat Seder. Tu B'Shvat is the New Year of the trees, they call it, New Year of the trees. It means that Hashkedia Porachat, the almond branches in Israel are blossoming. And this will be done on Sunday, February 5th from 6 to 7:30. And it'll be led by our rabbinic intern, Sarah Rovin. Also, on February 10th, after Friday night services, one of our first all in-person community dinners. We used to have it quite often, and then this thing called COVID got in the way. I don't know if you heard about it. And you can sign up for that soon. You can sign up, as a matter of fact, starting on Sunday, February 10th. I want to thank Michael Krieger for ushering. I want to thank Micah Klein for his wonderful technical help. And I want to thank all of you and remind you, when you do come again, which I hope you will, bring soup and crackers for family table. There's places downstairs where to place them. That's our assignment for our shul. And we now, family table serves close to 400, maybe more families who are just getting by. And we really help. It's a wonderful mitzvah, an easy mitzvah to do. Bring soup, vegetarian soup, and crackers. Any other announcements? Anybody want to say anything? Stock tips, nothing. Okay, good, just asking. So, Shalom Aleichem is found on page 50. We'll follow it by Kiddush. If you'd like to rise, please rise, page 50. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaShovaret, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu Ni leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Please all come closer. We make Kiddush and Motzi. Let's go there. The ritual, taking the challah out of the plastic. Yes, this began in the Talmudic period, before there was plastic even. It's really amazing how forward-thinking our rabbis were. I'm sorry. And keep the crumbs over here, okay? Just don't bring them all over the place. Kiddush is found on page 50 if you wish to follow. If not, I'm sure many of you know it together. We'll sing it. Great grape juice, Vintage Tuesday. Really. Savrei Chaverai. Savrei Chaverai. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech olam, borei peri agafet. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech olam, asher kiddeshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratza banu, v'shabbat kodsho b'yavav v'ratzon hinchilanu, zeicher, say bereishi, ki hu yom techila lemikraei kodesh, zeicher letziat Mitzrayim, ki banu v'charta, Yotanu kidashtaim kol oamim, v'shabbat kodshecha, b'ahava v'ratzon hidchatanu, Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh haShabbat. Let's all be connected to the challah as we bless it. Come close, come close. Don't worry. That's where you get the best piece. It's always this way. That's the best piece right there. My friends, we are so grateful that we have such wonderful opportunities to live our lives without starvation. And let us hope that we realize that we have to share what we have with others. It's very important. Together we say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. I'll put it over here, and you can then put the salt on it. Whoops. We put salt on it for all kinds of reasons, which I will not get into tonight. Shabbat shalom to all of you at home. Shabbat shalom. Wave, everybody, wave. We love you all. Glad that you joined us. And it's nice to see that you're not just a picture, but actually people who can wave. Shabbat shalom.
So, John, how's everybody? Good. How's my man Sidney? He's a big